All right. Hello. Good evening. Again, my name is Michelle K. So my last name is really spelled Kais. But as I mentioned on Monday, a lot of times people end up calling me Michelle K. Um, but I'm going to wait a little bit and I'll see if anyone is joining. I want you to first kind of start to think about that question on Monday. You said, how do you want to feel about the end of your day? Okay. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty. Hopefully it's okay. My internet was going kind of off and on. But let's kind of just start again. So on Monday, we talked about emotion. So having that emotional awareness. And that's really, really important for us to have when we are really taking care of our well-being, especially when we're around children who have multiple mental health diagnoses. So that's one of the things I do when I'm training, coaching a lot of staff who are working with kids with, our exceptional ed kids or special needs kids. However, I know every state sometimes has different language, or emotional behavioral disorders. So really tapping into our emotions. So I did give homework. So I want to kind of use this opportunity for some questions, but I want to first check in, and we're going to do a really quick exercise on how to tap into your emotions. And this is something that I've helped staff do. So the biggest thing you're going to do is take your hand and you're going to put it on your heart. Okay. And you can do this at any time. You could actually be with students and you can do this. I've done it a lot of times. And sometimes they don't even realize, actually, like kind of like I'm just rubbing my chest or something. And sometimes people don't even notice. Sometimes you can take a moment at your desk and just kind of, you can close your eyes for a moment and just take a deep breath in and just a little breath out. And while you're just kind of taking a moment, you're going to take a quick kind of inventory of what you're thinking, what your body sensations are. So how does, like, from your head to your toe, how you're kind of feeling. And then kind of pay attention to your behaviors. Are you staying still? Are you like rocking back and forth? Are you tapping something? Hello. So yeah, just taking that moment and giving yourself that time. I want you to kind of post in the comments below if you were able to do that for that moment. A clue that you had while you were doing that. What were you thinking in that moment, in this moment when you were doing it? What body sensations did you have? Did you feel tense in your shoulders? And then did you feel like, were you tapping or were you just kind of sitting still? Were you shaking your leg or anything? It looks like Megan said yes in terms of, how maybe the body sensation sounds like. So yeah, feeling warm, having a warm feeling. And I think like that's something for us to understand. Sometimes we are so busy throughout our day that we're not really recognizing emotionally how we're feeling. And those three clues, your thoughts, your physical sensations, and your kind of behaviors and what you're doing, that'll give you some clue to figuring out what's going on. And like Anna said, like focusing on your voice too as well, because especially when you are with, your students, you're really understanding your behavior. So that's a behavior that someone's going to hear, and you're going to feel it too in your body too as well. So definitely like focusing on the tone of your voice and how that is. So we kind of go into this because we have homework, and I don't know if anyone did your homework. So raise your hand if you did any homework. If you didn't, say that I'm okay. I did not do my homework. It's okay. So, all right, so we are going to look at the emotion writing exercise, okay? And so we can sit here and kind of do it together. I really want you to post any questions below. It's okay, Megan, you said oops, it's all right. I want you to really, if you have any questions about like dual diagnosis, so like anything with kids that you have that have multiple diagnoses and how, you know, to work that in the classroom, please just start putting those questions down. I'll start writing them or kind of taking a note of what those questions are. But we're gonna first go over the homework. But if you do have any questions, please ask, or any comments, please, okay? So if you did not do your homework, that's okay, because I'm gonna go over it with you, all right? So, all right, so we have the date, and this is something you can do for yourself at any time, and this is posted in the on the main page. So you can keep this as a resource for yourself and do this. It's a way of journaling. Okay, so today's date, it is December. Someone tell me. Someone comment what the date is, so I know someone's listening. So it's December. Is it the 8th or the 9th? I can't even remember. The day is just such a blur today. All right, so it's Wednesday, okay? So you can put the date, it doesn't matter, it's not a big thing. So you're going to write down, it's the 9th, yes, I was making sure someone was listening. All right, so it's December the 9th, good job, thanks Anna. All right, so we're writing down our emotional clues. So what is the triggering situation that happened to you? So I'm gonna do an example of a situation that happened to me today. I already filled one out. I was with a student, and this is actually very relevant because we're working on, that kid is actually gonna start working on their discharge plan to leave the facility. As I mentioned, I work in a residential facility, but there is a school that's attached to it. So we were talking about completing their courses on Ingenuity. I'm not sure if you guys do Ingenuity, but it's a program that we have here, especially in Florida, really working on especially for our high school students to finish all of their courses. So I think IXL too as well. So we're talking about this, and so the person that we're kind of, we're really thinking about is a child who is, teenager, diagnosed with autism, oppositional defiant disorder, and also like a mood disorder. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And we've been talking about dual diagnosis. So what do you think could happen for a child who is like a teenager and who we're talking about completing courses and diagnosed with autism? What behaviors do you think could be happening with a high school student diagnosed with autism, and other diagnoses too as well? So oppositional defiant disorder, a mood disorder. And then we're talking about, okay, we need to finish your course on Ingenuity. What's a symptom or behavior that you think that they might be doing? And please comment. Okay, I have a little bit of time. So type in any kind of symptoms or any behaviors that you might know of the kid who is on the spectrum, and maybe within your experience too as well, because that happens. Okay. Right, so sometimes one of the biggest things that happen is this idea of like rigidity. So like wanting things a certain way. So having things like, hey, this has to be a certain way and it has to look like this. And so what ended up happening for this triggering situation is that our high school student who wants to finish was only hearing one part of what I was saying. So only hearing that I have to, like, there's a course that, that student's not really that good in, and really kind of having these thoughts, very rigid thoughts. And I like that Anna said, like, wanting to control the situation. That happens a lot. And so really wanting to, like, she's talking about is like really wanting to kind of like, I want to be in control. I want to know what's going on. So what was happening is we're having this conversation, and that student's voice starts getting louder and louder and louder and starts yelling and screaming. Okay. And so I want us to kind of think about what might be for me. So you're going to kind of put yourself in my shoes, or maybe you've been through this situation. What could be a thought that's going on in the mind of that teacher, or for me, I'm a counselor, so I'm a therapist. So what could be going on, that in my mind, or someone's mind, when that student is like yelling and screaming, and you're just trying to have a conversation about, you want the best for them too. You want them to finish this course. So what kind of thoughts could be going on, in that mind of the therapist, of the teacher, of someone who's just trying to help a student? So I'll give a moment for you guys to kind of think about that. And please comment below, what might be something that I thought that could happen. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put one of the thoughts that, I was just like, I'm just trying to help. And then you also could have a thought of like really feeling as though someone's going to harm you. So that's like another thought that could be going on too as well. And then do I want to change it, or do I want to keep these thoughts? So that's something to think about. Yeah, how can I help him calm down? That's a really good thought too, really trying to figure out like solution of what that would look like. So, how can I help him? So you're really trying to find those solutions to what is going on. So let's kind of think about what am I feeling in my body? So let's go with Anna's thought. So how can I help them calm down? So then what might you be feeling when you really feel like, you are out of control, you feel like you cannot calm them down, what might be, a feeling in your body that might be happening? So kind of, comment below what might be a feeling that could be happening. And think about if you want someone to calm down. So probably I would say for me, the biggest thing is like what I just did when I first started was a lot of the putting your hand on your heart, because your heartbeat is like one of the biggest ways to know what's going on. Like Anna said, anxiety and tightness in my chest. So that's one of the main things that you really notice in your heartbeat. And this takes a lot of practice, a lot of mindfulness work. So you can, as I said, when we first started, just taking that moment and closing your eyes and really understanding what's going on within your body, that's going to be really helpful about what's going on. And so like Megan said, if they're not willing to calm down, I try and connect with them. Yeah. So I love what Megan said, because what Megan is talking about, and especially you want to think about kids who are on the spectrum, or you want to think about a lot of diagnosis just in general, your first thing that you want to do, and we do this in applied behavioral analysis, so a lot of ABA therapy, it is pairing. So pairing is that way that you're going to get to know your student. And you can do this in any way. Sometimes it's kind of like almost like taking the work that you're supposed to be doing and putting it to the side. And it's almost like you're just playing with that kid. So it can be like, playing cards. I know that sometimes things are online. And I know, like Anna said, connection is essential in communication. So you really have to know that child. Because I think that connection is going to be the number one thing. So it's just having conversations with them about things that they like, and just so it's kind of like in some ways you have to, especially as an educator, push the education a little bit to the side for a bit and have that just conversation with them, you know, about their family, about their home life. So like in our situation, our student loves video games and loves books like the Maze Runner and Maze Runner 1, 2, and 3. And so really talking about those things really can engage you. And then you're going to be able to, when those situations do come up, you're going to have more of a win in that situation, because you can start, and I've done this before. We've done sometimes like some planned ignoring, which a student has the behaviors where they're maybe like very attention seeking. And this can be multiple diagnosis, so I won't go into that, but making a lot of noise, as I mentioned on Monday, a lot of times you'll have students who are attention seeking and they will do kind of faces in Zoom and things like that. So planned ignoring is really helpful. So you're planned ignoring, and then you're just really ignoring the behavior, and that's really helpful. And then you can also find ways to connect either with other students. So that's a pivot praise, which is another intervention that we talk about. And pivot praise is like you're praising those other students for, sitting quietly, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's a really great intervention. And then when that student is doing what they're supposed to be doing, you come back, you praise them, and then you start to connect with them. Hey, so, what's your favorite book? Or what do you like to do? And then they're kind of caught, and they're now starting to understand, wow, I get attention when I'm quiet, when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, when I'm following directions. And so that has been really, really helpful in the classroom when I've worked with teachers too as well. We kind of went off on the side. Any questions right now? Kind of went off on a side note. Yeah, it's such a great intervention. I love planned ignoring, and then planned ignoring combined with pivot praise. It's my favorite to use when you have 30 kids. Yeah, and I love Megan's to sit on the floor with them. That's really great to have that connection. I know sometimes right now it's hard due to, social distancing and, especially if you're in person and really trying to figure that out. But even eye contact really helps, because that's what Megan is basically talking about, finding ways to still connect with that child. And that's going to be really, really helpful. I think one of the things we have to also realize is that a lot of our children who have multiple diagnoses, yes, they're having a mental health diagnosis, but I will tell you, at least in my experience, a large amount of them have experienced trauma. So a lot of them. But even if you're homeschooling with your child, yes, I love that. Megan's she's thinking about not only with educators, but also if you're having to homeschool with your child. So that's important that you can sit with them and have that connection. And I like what Megan is saying, because Megan is talking about when you're homeschooling with your child, you're having that connection. And so we really have to put some empathy and understand what our kids are going through. So empathy is about putting yourself in the shoes of someone else. And like Anna just said, it's challenging to make the connection virtually, because it's very, very difficult when you're on the other side and you're not, really realizing. So that's why that empathy is really, really important. And understanding what that child is going through. And a lot of our kids, especially with dual diagnosis, have also had trauma too as well. And this can be from anything, the trauma they've experienced from maybe biological parents, or you never know their situation, but they also could have trauma from some of their aggressive behaviors. So I've dealt with a lot of kids who have been restrained, had to be secluded in certain situations. And I can't even explain to you the trauma that helping professionals feel when you have to restrain a child, and then parents feel when they have to restrain a child. It is hard, and so then you have to think about that for that child. They really can't help what they're doing, and so they're feeling a lot of emotions too as well. And that's why I was saying, like, through the emotional work on your homework, it's really, really important, because you're starting to ask your kids, okay, like, what are you thinking? So sometimes our educators, if you're homeschooling, we ask our kids, are you okay? Are you okay? Has anyone ever asked, are you okay? Raise your hand or say yes. If you have said to your child or children that you work with, are you okay? Like, let me know. Or a friend, anyone. It's a common thing that people say. We say, are you okay? Now, for a lot of children who experience multiple diagnoses, I can tell you that is like a very triggering question. I don't, and I've heard a lot, they just have heard it so much, because maybe those are the kids that are withdrawn, dealing with depression, anxiety. Yeah, Anna says yes. Like, we've said that a lot. Are you okay? Now, I reframe it when I talk to a lot of parents, a lot of educators, and a lot of, and my kids in general, when I work with them, I ask, what are you thinking? What's a thought in your mind? What's a thought going on in your mind right now? Just take a moment and, hey, what are you thinking? They're, first of all, caught off guard. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, but it's really important for our children to understand what's going on in their mind, and I love how Anna said, like, it is a triggering question. Like, I think it's a triggering question for anybody, but for a child with mental health diagnosis, it's like times 10. Because first of all, they've heard it over and over and over again. Are you okay? What's wrong? That's another, what's wrong? And it's like, they will tell you that, like, everything is wrong. I am dealing with trauma. I am dealing with my spectrum social issues. I am dealing with oppositional defiant disorder, and I feel like I want to control things. Like, so it's layer upon layer. And so it's really, really important that we understand just to be as specific as possible with our questions. And the homework that we did that I'm going over, and I don't think we'll be able to go through all of it. So it's a resource for you to keep, but it's not only for yourself, but it's also going to be something you can do with a kid that you have or your own child. You can do it in the classroom. There's something similar to this that we used to do as a timeout area for children for a while, and this is like pre-COVID, where when they had really difficult time with their emotions, we gave them a certain, like, a paper just like this. What are you thinking? What are your body sensations? And sometimes they wrote, I don't know, but at least it gave them something to be able to do. And then what are your behaviors? So what are you doing? And then we want to look at, in the next page, we're exploring our end result. Like, do we like the end result? And the end result is going to be a consequence. Now, when you hear the word consequence, do you think it's a negative or a positive word? So I want you to comment below. Do you think it's a negative or a positive word? So you can put in negative if you think a consequence is negative. Positive if you think consequence is a positive word. So either positive or negative. So I'll give you a little bit to do that. All right. So Anna says negative. Okay, anyone else? Okay. So this is one thing that I work with a lot of my kids and my parents. And I love how Anna said it's a negative word, because in our society, consequence is viewed as a negative word. Though, when you look in the dictionary, consequence is literally like an end result or an outcome to a situation or anything. I have to pull up the exact one, but it's really like an outcome. And so we start to, when we work with kids, especially kids who have multiple diagnoses or any diagnosis, we start to have them reframe of this word consequence. And if we can get everybody on the same page to reframe about consequences, I would love it. They are both. They can be anything. They are just an outcome to a situation, because every situation that you have, there's just going to be an outcome. So going back to my situation, the teenager who we're talking about his grades, and then I have all these, thoughts in my mind, and some of the thoughts are like, how can I get them to calm down? My heart's beating really fast. My behaviors, just for me, was that I actually started talking about those video games and started just listening rather than responding. So I just sat back and listened, and I reflected back what he was saying. So I said things like, so I'm hearing you say you're feeling this. So I'm hearing you say, you're frustrated right now. And that changed the conversation. It really changed the conversation, because my behaviors were a little bit of the kind of planned ignoring. I was not really planned ignoring. So let's back that up. I was really just taking a moment and I was listening. I was really pulling in the connection of what are some of the things that he really loves. And then I was reflecting back what he was saying. So I was going, and you can always start it with it seems like, or what I'm hearing you say is this. So what I'm hearing you say is blah, 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 blah. You're just hearing back what you're hearing them say. And it changes the conversation. It's a skill I do a lot in family sessions. But I've realized that when I change my tone, when I am more present and focused, and that first comes from me realizing my heart's beating fast and I'm trying to even control the situation. I want to get them to calm down. And usually we do the opposite. Sometimes we want to get people to calm down. We're like, calm down, stop. So that happens. And I didn't mean to yell, but that's usually what happens. So the outcome was that he actually ended up being his tone went down because my tone went down. And he was like, yeah, I'm just really frustrated. And he started talking about his feelings too as well. And that really changed the conversation, but that didn't happen until I was recognizing what was going on with myself. And that's so, so important. And I love Anna put in there, consequence equals outcome of a situation. And you can think about that with anything. And I got that from my childhood, just to let you know. So my mom used to tell me that. She said, you know what a consequence is? It's just the ending to what's happened. So, and then and then she asked, do you like the consequence or do you not like it? That's how my mom would talk to me at 3. And I talk to my daughter like that too. But yeah, and then I would go no, I don't like it. Or, yeah, do you like it? And so that gave me an opportunity to process for myself. And that's so helpful for our children, especially our children with dual diagnosis. They are dealing with we call it a tornado of emotions, a tornado of thoughts in their mind. It is overflowing with so many thoughts times 20, 10, or, 100. And so what we are really trying to do is when we ask those questions, what are you thinking? We're trying to pull out the thought from the tornado. And so, let's kind of go back to the end and, really start to wrap it up. Please let me know if you have any questions or anything. Now, the last thing is what could happen if your reaction happens over and over again? So this is for me. This form is for me. So in this situation, I ended up changing my tone. I reflected what the child was feeling and did reflecting kind of statements. I was a little more present and I became very aware of my body, and I kind of changed my tone and changed what I was doing. Now, what if that happens over and over again? What can happen if I do that multiple times, over and over again? I'm reflecting back what the child is saying. I have a lower tone. I'm talking about video games. We're kind of bonding about that. What could happen? I'll give you a moment to comment about what can happen. So I'll kind of tell you, my experience. I've just seen the growth so much in a lot of children who have had multiple diagnoses. Parents are just at their wits' end and they don't know what to do, but purely because of having that connection, really understanding, what they're feeling. And I love that Anna said, like, the child begins to trust you. And so many of our kids who have multiple diagnoses, as I said, they've experienced a lot of trauma, and some of them are also not, we have a lot of kids that I work with who are in custody, who are in state's care, foster placements too as well. So trust is a really, really, really big issue for them. And to be honest, for a lot of our kids, it is. So when they're understanding that you're working on yourself and you're kind of saying, oh, I'm going to change my tone, or I'm going to work on how I respond, they're like, wow, I can now, like, if you're doing that, I can do that for myself. And then now I'm going to trust you even more. And I really love how Megan just said, like, safety. Like, safety, I love that. Like, they're gonna feel safe, and for a lot of our kids, they want to feel that way. I mean, adults too. Like, we do want to feel safe, but for our kids, we really, really want to feel that safety. They want to feel that safety and that trust, and then you get that through that connection that you make with them. So. All right, everyone. Well, I hope that was helpful to you. I hope you were able to have some takeaways. So I'll kind of wrap it up with my biggest takeaway. It's really making sure you connect with your kids, the kids that you have at home. It's really, really helpful. And looking at those consequences, really understanding the outcome of the situation. That's really, really important, so that you can be able to do that. And so really that connection, those consequences, and I gave a couple interventions that you have in between, but really the connection and then the outcome, the consequence. Okay, this has been great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Mallory. Both of you for putting all this together. I think it's going to be so helpful. Thank you for Megan and everyone else who's been joining. So, all right. Thanks. Have a beautiful evening. Good night.